Hey, it's day 26 of my journey towards writing my first fantasy novel. I'm Father Roderick. I'm a priest, obviously, and also an aspiring author. And this journey so far has been really amazing. I'm having so much fun coming up with the story. But what makes this journey even more special is your contribution as a community, as a member of that community, because I'm just talking to you, not to a crowd. Because your feedback, your help, and even your suggestions has been invaluable, and I've had so many ideas thanks to the community. So tomorrow I will be doing like an episode in which I'm going to go through a number of the things that I've picked up thanks to your comments and your corrections also sometimes. But today I just wanted to share with you what happened again this morning very early. It was one of those days I woke up and I had an idea, or actually I had several ideas. And I think it was because I'd been watching a movie, a Japanese movie, which was actually pretty bad, based on the Full Metal Alchemist anime series. And this was a live action version of that story. And I don't know if that happens to other writers as well. I suppose it does, but it becomes a little bit hard for me to read and to watch TV because I'm constantly thinking of, wait a minute, I can use a similar dialogue in my own book, or hey, I like this setting. Maybe I can transpose that and use it in my story. So I was watching this Japanese movie, and there at one point there's a pretty boring conversation between the protagonist of the story and a general, and it's boring because there's a lot of exposition there, and they clearly didn't have much budget, so it is pretty static. However, that back and forth between the protagonist and that kind of stern general or whatever he was in the army, apparently just stayed with me throughout the night. And so in the morning, I woke up with some really good ideas about some characters, and also some characters that I'd already come up with, and some of the dialogue that could take place, or the interaction that could take place between Tim and, for instance, the abbot, but also between Elara and another character that just was there all of a sudden. And so I again pressed the little record button on my watch, and I recorded a short voice memo, still completely like half awake, half asleep, just in case it is good. And I don't know that when I'm recording it. It just needs to get out of my head so I can go back to sleep. But then later on, when I look at what I actually recorded, I was again pretty amazed by what apparently part of my subconscious is doing with the information that I feed it. So here is an idea about the relationship between Tim and the abbot. Now, you already know the abbot is not a nice guy. In fact, he is in cahoots with the evil mages. But what is interesting in this first part of the story is it establishes Tim's kind of mindset. He tends to always agree with his superiors, and so the abbot is very strict with him, talks to him like a general in an army, and Tim is freaking out. The only thing he wants is that nobody notices him, so he ducks and he says, "Yeah, it's okay." And he's very much like, "Okay, I want to be obedient because otherwise I'm going to get expulsed from this monastery." So it tells us, this relationship between the abbot and Tim tells us a lot about where Tim is in this first part of the story. And obviously he's not going to stay like that, but we're going to see later on how he changes. And there is a second character in the story that is going to be extremely important for that change in his character arc and in his mindset. And that is the mentor that he is being assigned to. So at one point, Tim is admitted to the formation of the scribes, and they assign to him a very old monk who used to be a scribe, and actually we discover over time has also worked as a story mage. So he's been traveling the country and maybe even the world, but he's very unassuming. He's very soft-spoken. He doesn't, I mean, he's very sympathetic. It's just one of those like classic mentor figures that is a combination probably of all the good teachers that I had in my own life, and you blend them together and then you get this idealized teacher mentor figure. Also very paternal in a situation where, of course, these young kids are growing up without their parents, and so you need parental figures, and this mentor is one of them. However, underneath the surface, even though this guy is very soft spoken, very mild, there is actually a lot of fire, but it's not immediately apparent. But this becomes all of a sudden very clear once the attack takes place on the tower, and that's where they steal the codex, and all the scribes are killed. And in that battle, and at first I thought, oh, Tim is just going to be unconscious, and when he comes by, it has already happened. But I think I'm missing an opportunity there for some, first of all, good action, and also some important character moments or character beats for Tim, because his mentor is actually showing himself to be an incredibly powerful story mage, something that Tim had no idea. But in that battle, all of a sudden you see, what's underneath the monk's clothes, and it's just this incredible strong warrior. It's a little bit like Yoda being an unassuming little green fellow, like a Muppet, but in fact he's an incredibly powerful Jedi Master. So, and the thing is, this mentor will give his life to save his pupil, to save Tim, and also to save Alara. And that's going to be an heroic moment. I have no idea exactly how that's going to happen, but that's where the writing is important. But I do want this mentor to show Tim that it's possible to be both kind of mild and gentle, but to never extinguish the fire that burns in you. And when it counts, you have to let that out. You have to be strong. You have to stand up for yourself. And that is that whole culmination of Tim's relationship with his mentor is going to stay with him for the rest of the story. And later on, when he's put in similar situations where he feels that same tendency to duck, he remembers what his mentor did, and he channels that mentor, and he becomes like his mentor. Now, that creates like a male relationship, but I also have Elara, who is just as important as Tim for the story. And for Elara is very strong already. She has a very determined mindset, and she does not bow to anyone. But in order to make that apparent and to create tension and conflict, I need her to also have some authority figure to, how do you say that? Like to bump into, or to fight with. And that's when that morning, all of a sudden I saw it. It's going to be this older nun who is actually the abbess of the sisters. And I have shared this before, but when I was on Iona in Scotland, I saw literally the configuration of the male monastery, which was the big one built by Columba, and then you had a smaller building or set of buildings with a small chapel, and that was for the sisters. And so there was a community of sisters, and obviously that community also needs someone to lead. And in this case, it's going to be this very strict nun, very unpleasant also, because you want authority figures to be kind of like the opposite, kind of the counterpoint. It must hurt. There are going to be other strong female characters among the sisters, I think, that are going to show different aspects of the way in which you can be religious. I don't want to fall in the trap of just only having caricatures. So it's kind of obvious that a stern nun who is very bossy, it's not something new. You see that in a lot of stories. You just think of The Sound of Music, But at the same time, I think there's something I can play with there to highlight the Elara as having almost the opposite mindset of Tim, and what it also allows me to do is to create a kind of an interesting bond maybe between this female monastery or convent and then the male monastery, because what if the abbot and the abbess are have some kind of toxic relationship? What if there's more? Maybe they're even collaborating. Maybe they're both evil. Who knows? Or maybe we think that or maybe I can do that. I can throw a red herring and let you believe as a reader that the abbess is in cahoots with the abbot. But then when the final battle happens, it turns out that actually, no, she is morally right, and she is going to do the right thing. Maybe she will sacrifice her life to save Alara. Who knows? But it could be interesting. There's a lot of room there for interesting connections, and it adds depth. I think it adds layers to this monastic society, which I hope is going to correspond with like real situations in early medieval Ireland. So it gives me another reason to do more historical research, and I love that. That's one of the joys of writing this book. It gives me so much. How do you say that? I always have loved history, but if you start to study because you want to know what life was, it is a totally different way of studying history. And also, I've discovered that a few of you actually are historic, how do you say that? History scholars. Some of you even are specialized in medieval Irish history. So I was excited to discover that, because it means that you will protect me for you can be my mentor so that I don't say too many stupid things in my book. So thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful community, and it's growing every day. I'm so surprised how quickly this channel is growing, but it's a formidable force for me in order to make this book the best that I can write, even though it will probably suck because I've never written a book. But let's try to be positive. If it's going to be good, it's because of you. All right, thank you so much for listening. And tomorrow, as I mentioned, I will go a little bit more in detail when it comes to your feedback and what I learned from that. So thanks again for being a part of this community. I will talk soon. God bless.